Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Beta Ya program with your host Tariq Khan. Today we'll explore and analyze US-China relations, US-China competition or rivalry, and its impact on the region, and with special factor Afghanistan, Pakistan, Russia, and other regional countries. So let us bring our guest in program, Honorable Dr. Zia Ul Haque. You are senior defense analyst and director at Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, Islamabad. Sir, thank you so much for joining the Beta program, and you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Tariq Saab. I am with you, and you can go ahead.
Sir, how would you analyze US-China relationship, the history of US-China relationship, and what are the factors contributing towards the rivalry or competition between China and United States of America, and how would you analyze the current US relationship with China?
Yeah, thank you very much. US-China relations date back into early 70s. I think while the Vietnam War was still not over, and I think Pakistan still takes the credit of connecting the two. At that time, poles apart, and Pakistan facilitated, because Pakistan had till then enjoyed good friendly relationship with China and also with America, because we have been part of CETO and CENTO, and although at that particular time we were not enjoying that good relationship, because we expected some kind of support from the US during the 1971 war. But anyway, we extended and facilitated the US leadership of the time, and we connected the US with China, because US at that time wanted that they should have some kind of relationship with China, which had been very cold until then, because China by then had become a nuclear power and had been accepted as a proper NPT member, and therefore US wanted to have an ingress and thought it appropriate that it may be done through Pakistan, and Pakistan did facilitate. So it dates back to early 70s. Yeah, actually Tariq Saab, I do not call it rivalry as a Pakistani, because we have a very special kind of relationship with China. I call it US-China competition. The Americans might call it rivalry, but I do not call it. I call it a competition, because historically there have been superpowers who have competed with each other. If we do not go back too far back in the history, or even if we glance in the history, we have had the rivalries between the Russians and the Britishers in the Indian subcontinent. And then in the post-Cold War era, we've seen the rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union. And after the Soviet Union collapsed, following its policies or engagement in the Afghan war from 79 to almost 87, and finally finishing off in 89 when it finally broke, then we noticed that US emerged as a single largest power, or the international relations turned into unilateralism and multilateralism, which was there for ages in the international relations, almost finished, and US did not have any challenger for nearly 2.5 decades. However, when China started to rise, it started to rise peacefully, because it followed the path of development and progress economically and not militarily. So China avoided every kind of military engagement or every kind of military conflict. Also, although it had many territorial conflicts with India and in South China Sea, but it avoided all kind of physical engagement with any of its rivals, and it peacefully rose to a level where by 2028 it is going to be the largest economy, and therefore it will be in a position to challenge the US supremacy. Rather, it has already started to challenge US supremacy, and the area of conflict which is emerging fast is the Taiwan Straits and the South China Sea. Although China is exercising strategic patience, which is the hallmark of the Chinese because it's a very old civilization and it does not believe in military engagements. It has adopted the rise through other means, that is, as I said, through peace and progress economically. China's initiative of Belt and Road, in which it is engaging with all the regional and even the extra-regional states, whether the state is big or small, China is engaging. Just imagine, it is engaged with Sri Lanka, Pakistan for the CPEC, which is a flagship project of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. China is engaged in Africa. China is engaged in South America. China is engaged in the Middle East. So Americans are frustrated at this time, in my opinion, especially in the post-withdrawal Afghanistan situation, where the withdrawal did not go as envisaged by the US. And therefore, now it is trying to eclipse China. It is trying to encircle China through Quad and through AUKUS. Just imagine where Australia is, where Japan is, where India is, and where US is. And they formed Quad to eclipse or let's say encircle China. But in my opinion, they cannot do it now at this stage. If US was interested in encircling or containment of China, they should have not gone into Iraq. They should not have gone into Afghanistan. They wasted a lot of money and time in Afghanistan and Iraq. Only in Afghanistan, they wasted over $2.2 trillion and some 20 years without gaining anything as they've accepted now. Pakistan's incumbent Prime Minister Imran Khan had been telling them since 2008. He was of the same view in 2002 that there is no solution to Afghan problem with military engagements. But nobody listened to him. Rather, people ridiculed him, called him Taliban Khan. And now everybody is running towards him. Just look at the Western media, the number of interviews he is giving to the Western media in a week. And the onslaught of the Western media, the number of questions asked to him about the acceptance of Taliban, what everybody wants him to speak that he is a Taliban supporter and he is going to accept them sooner than later. However, Khan Sahib is intelligent enough to avoid these questions and reply them as per his conviction. He was right then and he is right now. And that is why when Mr. Trump wrote him a letter, perhaps in early 2019, to extend support for Afghan dialogue with Taliban, he facilitated. And whatever leverage he had, convinced the Taliban leadership that they must get engaged in talks with the US, because that's what he thought is the only way that the extra-regional forces will leave Afghanistan. Without talks and without Doha Agreement signed on 29th February 2020, the withdrawal would not have been possible. And now that the withdrawal has taken place, you can see there is so much of fragmenting going on because Pakistan and the regional countries are supporting an all-inclusive government in Afghanistan so that Afghanistan again marches for peace and stability because that is required for the regional peace and stability.
So as you have mentioned that China will be a superpower in future, and you have also said that there is a competition happening between China and United States of America. So, but the United States of America has always taken China as a threat and always remains seeking an opportunity to get allies in the region. So how would you see this whole scenario that why China is so important for United States of America? How would you analyze this?
Yes, Tariq Sahab, as I said, that US always need a rival. US always needs an enemy. Because if you remember, when the Soviet Union was defeated in Afghanistan and it disintegrated, Soviet foreign minister of the time, Edward Shevardnadze, stated that we have denied you an enemy. He was addressing the US. Because if you do not have an enemy, how would you sell your arms and ammunition, which is your biggest exports? That is the US MNCs, multinational companies or corporations. They only thrive on the sales of arms and ammunition. So US was quick to find an enemy in the form of Iraq, and the Gulf War started soon after the disintegration of the Soviet Union. So US found an enemy in the Middle East and the war started. And soon after that, again, when 9/11 happened, US found an enemy in Afghanistan and the war continued. The arms and equipment, the sale of arms and equipment continued, and what I said, $2.2 trillion is spent from the US economy, actually 95% went back to US economy. So American economy actually thrives on wars and conflicts, and therefore now at the moment it does not have an enemy. Where would US start a war now or a conflict now? Middle East is already in rubbles. Look at what has happened to Iraq. Look at what is happening in Yemen, Libya, Syria, and in Southwest Asia, let's say, or South Asia, Afghanistan. So there is hardly any space for another war and conflict in the Middle East. What America thinks now that the space exists in South China Sea and Taiwan Straits. Although I do not see a physical engagement in quick time against China, but US would want China to keep under pressure to contain China's rising economy and military power. Though it will not be able to, in my opinion, it will not be able to. Its time is over. China will continue to rise. China will emerge as a superpower. It is already emerging as an economic power. By 2028, as I said, it will be the largest economy. It will have enough resources to invest into military. It has already started. It has one of the largest navy, and it is resisting to show its power at this time, because that's how China's strategic design is. However, if forced, China will retaliate. If forced. Otherwise, China does not want to initiate any military conflict in South China Sea, and that too against the United States.
So as you have mentioned Afghanistan and the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan, how would you analyze in more details that the India United States of America, China, Pakistan strategic relationship or partnership in the region, especially in the context of the in the current scenario of the Afghanistan or Afghanistan factor? How would you analyze?
Actually, we made a mistake in the by initiating the Kargil conflict. This is what I think. In my assessment, Kargil conflict initiation by Pakistan was a mistake. It actually pushed India into the lap of the United States because US President Bill Clinton saw the situation and invited Nawaz Sharif to Blair House and forced him to withdraw from the Kargil Heights. US at that time thought that India was not the aggressor and Pakistan was the aggressor, and therefore it started to provide support to India. A role was played by non-resident Indians who by that time had become pretty strong. That is, Indian diaspora in US by that time had become pretty strong. So it pushed, the situation pushed Mr. Bill Clinton towards India, and India started to negotiate a number of deals, which finally culminated after 18 years of negotiations by signing BECA, that is Basic Exchange of Cooperative Agreement. Successive Indian governments and successive US governments pursued it. There are number of agreements, that is, there are a total of 4 agreements with the acronyms of CASEOA and Geneva or BECA, and it would ultimately provide a strategic partnership and lot of military support to India by the US. India will receive near real-time information. It will receive and get support of US strategic satellites. It will receive real-time information in times of operations and otherwise. And recently an Indian minister had given a statement that had Ladakh, had BECA had been signed before about 2 years back, then Ladakh would not have taken place, because Indian forces were humiliated in Ladakh, as you know, in 2020, whereas in 2019, Indian Air Force was humiliated by Pakistan Air Force on February 27, 2019. So India has attained its objective of getting close to United States. However, it has not dissociated itself from Russia. It continues to get Russian arms and equipment and continues to get into military contracts with the Russians as well. But most importantly, its participation in Quad is likely to give India an upper edge in the domain of cyber warfare and in the domain of hybrid warfare, which is already inflicted upon Pakistan for the last 15 years, as was revealed in Disinfo Lab or the Indian Chronicles by the European watchdog. So India stands benefited at this time with the US strategic partnership. Now coming to the second half of your question, that is Pakistan-China relationship. So Pakistan-China relationship is very old and it's very deep, not only economically but militarily as well. And China will offer military partnership, has offered strategic partnership to Pakistan. Pakistan enjoys that kind of relationship. However, must remember that China does not support any military solution to the Kashmir issue. And that is why China did not support Pakistan during the Kargil conflict. It insisted that Pakistan should resolve its differences and conflicts with India through peaceful means, that is through dialogue. So therefore, Pakistan also understands it and does not expect a direct military support in case there is a military engagement between India and Pakistan. So we should not depend too much on China for military support. Yes, during peacetime, military cooperation, military support, economic engagement will continue. But Pakistan will have to rely on its own resources, training, and strategy to deal with India should the situation such arises.
Sir, as you know, and you have mentioned also there about the Quad and the AUKUS alliance. So what do you think, what it have to do with China, Russia, Iran and other regional countries? Will China take over USA? Who is stronger in terms of economic and security perspectives in the international power politics, China or Russia, China or United States of America? How would you analyze?
Actually, Tariq Sahab, if you talk of today, there is no denying that US is still the strongest military power in the world. And historically also, there has been no military power so strong as the US has as far as arms and equipment is concerned, as far as the sophistication of arms and equipment is concerned. However, just look at its output. It has never won a war. Look at Vietnam performance. Look at Afghanistan problem and its performance in Afghanistan. Therefore, because it does not engages directly with a power of, with an equal power. When I say equal power, then I am talking of the two superpowers. Like during the Cold War era, the Soviet Union was considered to be an equal power. It did not directly engage, and they fought their wars through the proxies. But with the collapse of Soviet Union, if we see the wars since last 30 years, they have been all between the US and the unequal military powers. That is UMPs, unequal military powers. The superpower engaging a small and weak state, whether it was Iraq or it was Afghanistan. And the only thing they would achieve is to ruin that state through bombings. Even with boots on ground, they were unable to subdue the population of that state, the resistance of that state, and we have seen that in Vietnam also, and we have seen that in Afghanistan also. As far as your question vis-a-vis China is concerned, China is an emerging power, as I said. China still needs a lot of time to declare itself as a military competitor of the US. It is an economic competitor, but not as yet the military competitor. Because military engagement at this time, direct or indirect with the United States, will be disastrous for the region. Because the regional economy will go down and the whole region will take then decades to recover. America, by virtue of its location, does not get affected directly, whereas it can affect the regional countries through its outreach of sea power, through sea basing, and through some of the regional allies. Like it has bases in Japan, it has bases in Guam, it has bases in South Korea, it has a strategic partnership with Australia, it has a strategic partnership with India, and it has bases in the Middle East. Therefore, it can hurt the region should a military conflict breaks between the two emerging powers. So I do not see a direct military engagement with China or in Taiwan Straits. China is not interested. Taiwan is not interested. US might be interested only to create chaos in the region, not for any other reason. Just to create chaos so that China's rise is impeded. Otherwise, I do not see any other strategic objective of encircling China at this stage. And perhaps President Biden understands it, and that is why he keeps on trying to speak to President Xi to find a solution to increasing tension between US and China. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your precious time, valuable and in-depth analysis on US-China competition or rivalry and the impact on the regional countries. Thank you so much again for your time in
You're welcome,
program.
Tariq. Thank you very much.